Friday vlog. What did I do this week? Wow, I'll start with the camera stuff. So I was complaining last week that this Panasonic, I couldn't figure out how to do auto ISO for vlogging, which is super helpful that I figured that out since I just saw the light go down. I figured it out. So with a Panasonic, it's kind of weird. If you have it in movie mode, you don't get auto ISO, but then you get like Cinelike D and Cinelike V, these profiles. But if you put it in, see the light's going back up and it shouldn't be a big deal. But if you put it in camera mode, still camera mode, and then click video, you can use auto ISO. So I have it set up between 200 and 1600 right now, I think. The trade-off is if you do movie recording in camera mode, still camera mode, you lose Cinelike D, Cinelike V, all these specialized movie functions, and I think you lose shutter speed control too. So it's a trade-off. I think for vlogs, I guess I'll just use it in still camera mode, and then for serious stuff, I'll actually pay attention and put it in movie mode. That seems to be the way to do that. A little growly today. So that was the camera tweak. I'm also on a 18mm frame right now instead of my usual like 40 or 50-ish. So it's a 36mm equivalent field of view. So it should be like you get close, there's a little bit of distortion, you move back, it flattens out. Okay. So, yep. Yeah. So 30-ish. I'll show you the frame that I like the most, but I'm too close. I'm sitting physically too close, but so it's a 20, so it's a 40. Okay, so it's 20. So that's about my favorite. So that's about a 40. That's my favorite, and then here's a 50mm equivalent field of view, which is pretty decent looking. And then if you go really far in, that's basically a portrait. So I'm way out here because I'm very close to the camera. So I'm about there. So, but if you go wider, things get distorted really easily, which is interesting. But we'll be at 18. I like 18 for this position. Did I write this week? I wrote log lines again because I had to turn in that for the thing that they're going to shop around from film school to the agencies. So not really. I'll forgive myself, I guess. Did I read this week? No, I did not. For shame. What did I watch this week? Right? Is that the next question? We're just going to plow through my things. Yeah, what did I watch? I poured through all of season 2. No, I already did that. I poured through all of season 2 of Travelers, which is on Netflix, which I quite enjoy. It's fun. It's just like a fun sci-fi story. I like it. It's a little bit offbeat, and it's a little bit like, are they really following the rules that they put together? Moments, but it's pretty satisfying, and the escalations seem to make kind of sense because every episode things escalate, which I like. I like escalating stories. The way it's shot though is really trippy because it's super wide angles and it's usually from the floor, so everything is distorted. It's really interesting, and it's got Eric McCormack from Will and Grace in it. It's just like a really decent sci-fi sort of procedural show that happens to escalate. Like, I don't really know what else to say about it. It was satisfying. My only reservation is because it's on Netflix and it's a Netflix only show. It doesn't have the previously on that usual long form shows have. So when I started watching season 2, I completely forgot what happened in season 1 because it had been a while, and it's such a character driven story that I really was confused who was who and when people became different people, that kind of thing. But so it doesn't work. Season 2 doesn't really work as a standalone very well because you just don't know enough about season 1 unless you remember it all. But so watch it all in order, 1 and 2. Watch it together. It's pretty satisfying. It's really interesting. It really deals with the idea of identity and, you know, when someone is not a person anymore, that kind of thing. Because the whole pitch with Travelers is people from an apocalyptic future come back on the direction of the director, a altruistic computer program like AI sends people back in time into host bodies of people who would die in the next few minutes. So that's sort of the rule, is if you come back as a traveler, you have to inhabit the body of someone who was destined to die, and you do your best to not let the death happen. So you're basically inhabiting a dead person. But then you end up living the life of the person had they lived, which is messy. One person has a kid, one person's married, that kind of thing. It's interesting. It's a really interesting idea. And then their other big rule was every time a traveler gets sent into a body, that's the next point in time where you can't go back in time further than that. So if right now a traveler inhabited my body, the director couldn't send somebody back behind this moment in time. They would have to keep going forward. It was a really interesting idea. And it's less about how the future changes and more about how the present changes, which was, I think, a good angle. They did a really, really awesome high concept episode that was basically a video game where and it wasn't even the main cast. The main cast was like the C story, and the main story was the director was sending travelers into the same woman's body to get her to the main cast as quickly as possible to save them from getting assassinated. And it took many tries of video game style, like making one adjustment through the process of racing to get to them to do it. It was really well done. I really, really liked it. I don't know if it follows the logic of how that works in that world. I was questioning that the whole time, but it was a really interesting idea. I'm gonna try to think what else I watched. I watched another episode of AP Bio. It's not going to break any new ground, but it's fine. It's well written. It's just, it's meh. I don't even know though, now that I think about it, because his whole thing in AP Bio was he's trying to get revenge on the Stanford professor that ousted him. But the last couple episodes I watched had nothing to do with that. So maybe they were told to pivot, or maybe there's a grand, I don't know. Who knows? I'm trying to think what else I watched. I watched Happy. I watched the first three episodes of Happy, which is on Sci-Fi. I saw ads for it when it came out. It's been a while. It's been a few months. But it's Chris Maloney from Law & Order is a not suicidal, but wants to die, but thinks he's immortal. Hitman for the mob, who is constantly on the verge of death as he's doing his hits. Gets visited by a cartoon flying blue unicorn who happens to be the imaginary friend of a girl who got kidnapped. And so Chris Maloney is doing his crazy, coked up murder stuff while being haunted by a Patton Oswalt unicorn, which kind of fun, real bloody. Reminds me a lot of Blood Drive, which is the other show that was on Sci-Fi. But this one is a lot more well executed, and definitely had a bigger budget because the graphics look good, the CGI looks good. I'm trying to think if I watched anything else. Happy was good though. I'm gonna keep watching Happy. That was fun. I'm sure I watched something else. I don't know what I did though. Movies. I already talked about Red Sparrow. I saw Black Panther finally. As a social movie, I think it's super great and undeniably head and shoulders above the best of Marvel has ever done socially. As far as an actual story with the logic of a story and the quality of a story, middle of the road for Marvel. Like super middle of the, like it was a cohesive story, but it was felt like a copy of a copy of a copy. I mean, it was still better than that Batman versus Superman Justice League that I watched a while back. It was still better than that, but it was just like, superhero fatigue, I think is what it is. Also, the guy I was sitting to introduced himself to me in a packed theater, and then immediately and was filling up mine and his seat, and then immediately fell asleep and snored through the whole thing. So that's just bad picking on my part. I'm trying to think if I watched anything else. I don't know. So obviously it wasn't that good. Writing tip. Forgot again to talk about a writing tip. So let me think about this for a sec. Also, there's a cat next to me, and he's not being a piece of shit today. So that's pretty nice. Usually he's trying to climb my my blinds, or trying to let himself out, or trying to knock my tripod over. But writing tip. Talked about log lines. Man, I was out of the game too much this week. I recognize that. Shame on me. Hey, be cool. Writing tip. When to bring something to a workshop. Let's talk about that. Unless you're on a critical deadline, or have a writing partner, or have a manager who really likes to get his hands dirty, don't turn in something rough to a workshop, or to get creative notes, because most of the notes you're going to get are going to be about the rough stuff. It's just the nature of, low-hanging fruit. If you write, especially a first draft, if you write a first draft, don't give that to people unless you're ordered to. Go out of your way to at least go through it a couple times properly, so that you're turning in what they believe is a first draft, but what is it wasn't just spell checked. It was, you actually went through and adjusted a couple things. It's the idea that you don't want to waste your time when using somebody's creative energy. Like if what you're giving to get notes back on already has so much wrong with it that you would fix all of it, then like what's the point of getting outside intervention? But I'm not. It sounds mean, but it's not supposed to be mean. It's supposed to be. The whole point of getting creatively involved with somebody, like getting notes from somebody, is you took it as far as you think you can take it, and that's when you get notes, or you're just ready to show it to people, and that's when you get notes. I only say that because I'm in academia, and I'm guilty of this too, of just turning in something that I wrote at the 11th hour. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Usually it doesn't. I'd say that's a big difference between a professional and a student or an amateur, is the level of quality that you advertise. And so if somebody knows that every time you give them a script that you're the one that gives them an unfinished script, that you get it, people can start to smell it on you, and it's not great. I know this is like condescending business advice, but I really do mean that. Like, in the idea of the sale, you want to look like you're the best person for this job, but even less than that, you have the ability to hold yourself to a higher standard than you think, And so you should strive to try to get to that higher standard at all times, because that's what's going to separate you from the person who doesn't do that work. Because, you know, a lot of people know how to write stuff. A lot of people are pretty decent, and people can get lucky. You know, a bad writer can get lucky and just do a good job. But what's going to separate you is all of that non-creative work that surrounds it. This is as much for me as it is for the camera, I realize, because I'm just shaming myself. So turn in stuff that you did more than spell check. That's sort of my thing. Even if I had an agent say, hey, you have 2 days to write this, I would write it in a day and a half, and then the other half of that last day I would go back and adjust as much as I can possibly think of, because I don't want to, you know, you put in more. The whole point of writing, just like building anything else, is the final product is the tip of the iceberg of how much effort goes in, and you gotta put in the time. Like, the only person that I can possibly think of that what they wrote is exactly what gets made, except for maybe Aaron Sorkin, because he's Aaron Sorkin and he's in an environment where he can do whatever he wants, and that he's been in that environment for so long, I don't think he knows the difference. But the only other person I can think of that what they just sort of farted out became canonized is Shakespeare, because he just didn't rewrite himself. Because he couldn't, because he was using a quill. So that it might even be a rumor. I could be talking out of my ass. There's a really decent chance that he rewrote himself like crazy, but best I can figure, the only person in history who had the raw talent that's so fundamental that everything he wrote was gold. See, I don't even know if I believe that, because I feel like a bunch of his sonnets were not very good. But he didn't rewrite himself. In this day and age, you rewrite yourself. That's the whole point. So, box office. I got 5 out of 5 last week. It was Black Panther, Red Sparrow, Death Wish, Game Night, Peter Rabbit. Again, Black Panther is just knocking it out of the park. The Oscars were last weekend. Okay, so I saw the Oscars, and congratulations to Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, who finally won after being nominated forever. He was awfully twitchy on stage, and so how much of that was discomfort and how much of that was medicated, but congratulations to him. I really wanted him to win. Happy that The Shape of Water won a bunch of stuff. Really liked it. Really like Guillermo del Toro. He's an auteur. And then the thing that stuck out to me the most, other than the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is 1.5 feet taller than Helen Hunt. Yeah. The thing that stuck out to me more than that even was that Greta Gerwig, who got nominated for a bunch of stuff for Lady Bird. I really like Greta. Came up on Mumblecore, big fan of Greta. They sat her on the end, and she wore like a bright red or a bright yellow dress. I don't remember colors very well, but they sat her on the aisle because they were like, she's going to win something. And she had to watch everybody walk by her because she didn't win a single thing. And I feel really bad for her, because she, I think more than anybody else there, would have been of my generation, or of the new class of filmmaker. I put Jordan Peele in that same category, although Jordan Peele is still significantly older. But more so than Jordan Peele even, the new class of filmmaker would have been Greta Gerwig, and she didn't win a damn thing at the Oscars, and I just feel bad about that. And she had to watch everybody go by, so that's too bad. My picks for this week. I'm just going to go right off of what Box Office Mojo says, because there's just... So they're saying A Wrinkle in Time. Yeah, I agree. They're saying A Wrinkle in Time is going to get 42 million and Black Panther is going to get 38 million, because Black Panther did 60 million last week. That means A Wrinkle in Time is going to open soft, but I do believe it's going to be Wrinkle in Time, Black Panther, Strangers, Pray at Night, Red Sparrow, Death Wish. I think that's a really easy call. Black Panther is just crazy. Like I think I should talk about Black Panther for a minute. So this is my theory, and has nothing to do with anything. This is not based on anything, but it's pretty well known that Tyler Perry does not make narratively high quality stuff. He just doesn't. He didn't come up that way. He was doing plays forever. Now he makes blockbuster movies. But he's never going to win an Oscar for screenwriting because that's just not what he's angling for, and that's fine. I can respect that. However, all of his movies, no matter what, are insanely profitable because, one, he makes them for very cheap. He makes them for what studios don't make stuff anymore for. In that mid-range, in that like 15 to 40 range. Because now studio tent poles are 100 plus and indie films are less than 10. He makes them in the middle, and so they're pretty well done, even though I don't think the writing's super great. They're pretty well done, and then they go to theaters and they get watched like crazy because the Black community just loves watching Black community movies, and really the only person serving up Black movies at all times is Tyler Perry. So, of course. Again, this is just speculation and me not knowing any of the nuances of how any of this works, but honestly, I think that's what it is more so than anything else. Tyler Perry just has the hearts of the Black community, and so they'll watch whatever he makes, and almost exclusively they're super satisfied with it. Once again, I think his quality of writing is that of about Scary Movie, which I really like Scary Movie, but it's not the only thing. So I think Black Panther has accidentally or intentionally, probably intentionally, let's be real, because filmmakers exist, has found the same sort of vein of gold that is what Tyler Perry does, which is a good Black movie. And it's I don't know why it's blowing anybody's minds that this is a thing, but good. Hopefully this is the dawn of a new generation of specifically Black movies that are somewhere between, the Oscars and what Tyler Perry makes. That's, in that big gap. Because clearly there's an audience there that will go to the movies. So why would you not go for that? I think it's silly that it took Black Panther, a Marvel Generation 4, Generation 3 movie, to demonstrate that you can have a high budget blockbuster that is decidedly Black and have it annihilate everything else at the box office week after week after week after week. I feel like that lesson came late, but I mean, honestly, by that, extending off of that, every other niche that would be interested in going to the movies needs to be pursued in the same way at least Tyler Perry pursues it. I'm concerned that possibly the Black audience might be the only audience left that's like that, honestly. But I hope I'm wrong. There's definitely, I feel like the big audiences now are just middle-class white folks, because middle-class white folks tend to watch movies. And then the subset of that is 14-year-old boys, although we've been moving away from that paradigm for 15 years now. And then there's definitely the niche that is black viewers will see a movie and just pack the theater. The Christians will do the same thing. Like there's still enough viewership and enough disposable income for almost all of the main 15 niches. If you make a movie about this and put it in theaters, they'll go see it. I think the issue has been almost all movies have been for this person, Midwest white person, who we've had 100 years of Midwest white person movies. So it's like, how much new terrain can you possibly explore? But there's always new terrain because stories are characters. Anyway, congratulations to Black Panther. It's a Marvel movie. I like that it did incredible, but at the end of the day, it's a Marvel movie, so it's got its ears cut off, and it's not the kind of story I would intentionally try to tell. If somebody paid me to, I totally would, but let's be real, I'm not getting a Marvel franchise ever. All right. Do better than me this week. I just sucked. I've just been playing computer stuff. Oh, I've been building my website. That was a thing. And editing photos. Oh yeah, I edited a lot of photos. That's why I didn't write this week, is because I spent 30 hours retouching a bunch of photos. Do better than me. Congratulations to Do better than me. Congratulations to Black Panther. And sorry it became 26 minutes.